Hello. So I am Stephen, Claude's second son. I welcome all of you here to this special day, and I invite everybody to mourn and cry, to rejoice and laugh, to kind of experience my dad's passing in a way that's meaningful for you. We have kind of a long program, so we're gonna push it through and try to let everybody have a chance and let things sink in, and then celebrate Dad's life after and continue sharing. A couple housekeeping items that I wanted to take care of. The first is, if you have a program and you could hold it up, and then in front of you, and then you could open it. You'll notice that it's upside down. We call that sacred humor. And Dad would really appreciate that. And so I invite you, for those who are concerned, to grab it like this with your hand, and then just do the infinity symbol. Okay? And then you can read it. My grandfather would appreciate that gesture. Other than that, I really invite you to enjoy and be in community. And with that, I'm going to pass it to my brother.
All right, thanks, Steve. So I'm Eric. I'm the second of four in the family and the first son. And Steve and I will be helping to hold the space and the energy for us during much of our ceremony today. And we'll be joined by our sisters, Anne and Chinook, later on. I wanted to spend a little bit of time with the help of Chinook here, setting an intention for our time together over the next hour and 15 minutes or so. So this is for us the ceremony that we really wanted to create, and we're going to spend a little time creating that sacred space for this time that we'll be spending together, and so our intention. This is I'm thinking of my dad right now. He is certainly present, as many of you know, and the opportunity to have everyone in this room together right now, the many who aren't here, is amazing. And look at my mom, and she's exuding that beautiful essence that is special in life. So our intention is to be present during this time, and I invite you all to bring your personal relationship with my dad, whether it comes from decades of being together or just having met him through other family members. And we invite you to hold that experience during our time together, and then to learn about him from the stories and relationships that we're going to be sharing at the same time. And our hope is that when we finish the ceremony, that we will all have a richer and deeper understanding and indeed relationship with him moving forward. And I, for one, know that I will know him deeper when we finish up. So thank you for lighting that candle. We're going to do two things, actually three things, to help create the sacred space before we read some of his favorite poems and ask special members of his communities and family to speak about him. We're going to invite members of the drumming circle that took place at my parents' house for decades to come up and drum for us for a while, and we're asking them to help, through their drumming, again, create the sacred space that we want to be in. And then my sister Anne will come up and lead us through some breathing that has deep meaning with regard to my dad, especially the final weeks and months of his life. And then we'll do an invocation that to recognize where we are and to invite the spirits of the ancestors. So I'd love to invite the drumming circle folks to come up here, and hoping you know who you are. We invited you all to bring drums, and we tried to not have too many people bring drums, because many others might have wanted to. And invite everyone else here while they're playing to close your eyes and to center yourself. East, can anyone know exactly where east is right now? So we're going to jump in and invite you to go inside and to call in your own spirits and to engage in your personal form of prayer to, again, create the sacred space.
Thank you to the Drumming Circle for helping to create a secret space today to honor Dad. As many of you know, my dad ended up dying of respiratory failure, and in those last months of life, breathing became really important and intentional. And my dad really believed in bridging traditional and non-traditional medicine, and one of the ways that happened was through breathing. And there was a time in the hospital where the physical therapist taught him how to breathe, and it happens to be the same way that meditative teachers teach us to breathe. And so I thought one way we could connect with Dad in this celebration together would be to do just a little mini breath meditation. And so what I'm going to have you all do in a moment is we're going to all breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the mouth, and do it with intention. And we'll do it together 5 times, and then we'll begin the program. So here we go.
Okay, thank you. The last thing we want to do before we start with the readings is an invocation. Just to center us in space and place that we are on ancestral lands of the Coast Biwa people who took great care of the land here for thousands of years. And so express my gratitude for their role and invite us to also inhabit this place with grace and honor too. And also want to formally call in the spirits of the ancestors today. And something that has changed for me markedly is understanding what that means now that my dad has transitioned, and indeed want to rattle a little bit and invite everyone to call in your spirits of your ancestors too, and others who are important to you, and the directions as well, recognizing that I'll be, and invite others to be calling in my dad as well. Okay, Steve. Steve's going to introduce. Very simplistic.
Always hard following Eric. But an honor. So people are going to speak now. Some poems are going to be read. The theme that loosely ties this together is gratitude and reflections. And so it's really gratitude and inspiration. And we've all been inspired by my dad, by mom, by just, being in the same existence together. And so I think that'll come out now. And the first reading is going to be by Anne's daughter Chantal, of a favorite poet of my father's. And this one is Mary Oliver, Last Night the Rain Spoke to Me.
Last Night the Rain Spoke to Me by Mary Oliver. Last night the rain spoke to me slowly, saying, what joy to come falling out of the brisk bud to be happy again in a new way on the earth. That's what it said as it dropped, smelling of iron, and vanished like a dream of the ocean into the branches and the grass below. Then it was over. The sky cleared. I was standing under a tree. The tree was a tree with happy leaves, and I was myself. And there were stars in the sky that were also themselves. At the moment, at which moment, my right hand was holding my left hand, which was holding the tree, which was filled with stars and the soft rain. Imagine, imagine the long and wondrous journeys still to be ours.
So, just a little bit of description of what we're trying to do now. We've invited family members, special family members, and many members of his community who are here today to share a little bit about him and to reflect and to share blessings as well. And our hope is through the course of these readings to create a tapestry about my dad, from all the different parts of him. And again, we're hoping that when we finish this, that we will have woven together new cloth about my dad that we will all leave with and carry in our hearts as we leave. So I think the order is on the program. Again, you know how to turn it over to me. But first I want to invite his siblings who come here, one from Belgium and the other from the East Coast, to share about my dad from the perspective of siblings.
My name is Jean-Pierre. I am Claude's older brother, and I'm very proud of that. Turns out that because we were close in age, we spent our youth together, sharing the same room at home, going to the same school, going to the same Boy Scout reunions for a long time. And it worked pretty well. Of course, sometimes I had to remind him that I was the older one and that I knew better. But when we went our separate ways, college and family and careers and all, I realized that Claude was, my kid brother, was a much better person than I was. Serious. Why? Because he was always so positive, so optimistic, and he had this great respect for humanity, for life, for people, for nature. Very unusual. Now, when we met through life, we never really raised those sacred subjects together. As you know, Claude never really tried to impose his views, and we had other discussions. But he had still, indirectly, a very strong influence on my life throughout my life. So, and I know that talking to my siblings, Claude's siblings, 6 of them, had the same experience in being influenced by him strongly throughout their life. So thank you, Claude. We miss you.
My name is Nino. I'm Claude's sister, 3rd of a family of 7. I'm 3 years younger than Claude. Claude, my beloved brother, I miss you. As we always say in the Poncelet family, you are my favorite brother. Ever since I was a little girl, and growing up, Claude was always so kind to me. He never yelled at me or pulled my hair, as usually older brothers do with their brothers. We were always very close. We visited each other with our 2 families in Belgium, where we shared the same house in Saint-Martin, and in their different houses in Pittsburgh and San Francisco. We traveled together, camped with our kids in the Middle West and Colorado River, where while Claude was talking to us about the stars and the trees, Eric and Stephen were combing their hair. Who knows, the girl might always come We also took a wonderful trip to Iceland a few years ago with Noel and my husband. I followed almost all the workshops he taught in Belgium on different aspects of shamanism. Always a lot of fun. Yes, fun with his wonderful sense of humor, even when he was talking about serious matters. But even though I was never able to travel in the different realities, he always told me it didn't really matter. I guess I'm mostly a down-to-earth person. Thank you, Claude, also, for having been the father that he needed so much to my grandson, Antoine. We lost our beloved brother, Philippe, 23 years ago. Philippe was the heart of the family. Claude is the spirit of the family. I will miss him until the day I die. I will try. I will keep trying to reach his spirit. And who knows, maybe he might teach me how to do it. Thank you.
Okay, so now you're going to get a little bit of my dad from the perspective of his 4 children.
I am the Clint. There are always so many layers to who my dad was for me. And so I will share something, just one thing, that has always resonated with me and has impacted my life profoundly. From a very young age until, again, very recently, a few months ago, my dad shared with me that he believes that one of the true achievements of mankind was the creating and making of music. The writing of music, especially starting with classical music, chamber music, and opera. I remember my dad taking me out of elementary school on Wednesday afternoons to see the Pittsburgh Philharmonic Symphony play the afternoon performance. Not only did I get out of school, but I got solo one-on-one time with my dad for several hours, enjoying something that was a true passion for him. He would also explain to me during that time the different instruments, the nuances between how the instruments interacted and also how the performers played their music and the nuances between the performers. This led me to music of my own sort, and all sorts of music has come through my dad's door and also through my door. I sang in church choirs from a very young age through school and high school. I sang in the concert choir during college and performed in a few bands over the years since then. My joy and passion for making music with other musicians is the true result of that profound passion that my father instilled in me. Claude played the cello for some of you who were ever had the benefit of that experience, and there were a few special times where he would play the cello and I accompanied him on piano to the Canon Taco Bell. My dad heard music through instruments, through nature, through the trees, as well as the animals and birds surrounding him. On his last day, his wife, children, and grandchildren gathered around him singing songs that we love and songs that we know that he loved. And to our joy and a miracle of amazement, we turned over to see that with gusto, he was singing along with us with his last breaths. And that is a gift that I carry deep in my heart and I share with you today.
One of the last things my dad said to me was, "We are very different, you and I, and we are very much the same." What that means to me is very personal, and it will take a lifetime to fully understand these words, but I will share with you some observations and feelings. Dad came from a remarkable family and was a good-looking guy. Dad grew up in an occupied country during World War II. I grew up in a superpower. As much as I am my father's son, he saw mon cœur, my heart. Noel in me. We both had larger-than-life parents and can both get stuck in our heads. And he has found his path and was complete. I am grateful for Dad's authenticity and his ability to be relevant in both ordinary and non-ordinary reality. I am also grateful for the example that he has set for me, my family, and my universe.
So I received many gifts from my dad as he was entering into his final days with us, and I'll share two of them. First, I was able to again appreciate how he was really able to see people around him. He was able to recognize our full, authentic beings and to name and reflect these qualities back to us. And he would call these out, for instance, at family dinners in the toasts that he would make. And he named them again to us privately during our final hours with him. And so what a gift to feel really seen by another human being. He gave that. And secondly, I'm eternally, immensely grateful for the role he played and continues to serve as a mentor to me. And indeed, I think there are many others in the room who shared that experience with him as well. And what a blessing to have your most important mentor also be your father. So his mentorship occurred on a few levels. First, professionally, he was supportive from the beginning about my shift from engineering to anthropology years ago. And I would like to say that he's probably the only family member who actually read my entire book. Thank you, Dad. Spiritually, he also served as an important guide for me as I began, in particular, exploring my own shamanic path. And I have fond memories of driving down to my parents' house in Ladera, outside of Palo Alto, on Wednesday nights in the mid-1980s. And I would come down by myself, and we would practice journeying to 20-minute Michael Harner tapes. And finally, on a personal level, he provided an example of how to completely integrate one's spiritual life into one's personal and professional lives. And he did so with the utmost impeccability he could muster. He exemplified this in his journey with cancer. He did not see the spiritual and material worlds as separate, and for him the world was imbued with spirit, and everything was interconnected. And he was able to hold these dualities in a holistic manner. But he had cancer, and he did not have cancer. And despite his physical challenges, especially that he experienced near the end, he was able to bring living and dying together in dualistic balance in a way that prepared him so well, I think, for his next journey. So today he's gone, and he's still with us. Another gift.
Dad taught me that we aren't born into a family at random, that our spirits choose to come together in this form. What a gift that our spirits chose to be together and with this family. Dad taught me how to walk in nature, how to walk quietly with spirit, so connections with the land, the plant and animal life was possible. How to live in the ordinary and non-ordinary world simultaneously. I'm grateful to be his daughter, his student and teacher. to be a part of his journey with and without cancer as a physician and a shamanic healer, how to be true in relationship and in myself. I hope our spirits will continue to walk together in this world and in the next.
Okay, next I'd like to invite up my daughter Kira, who will be making the reading on behalf of the grandkids. Are they going to come up? I invite all the grandkids to come up.
Hi everyone. My name is Kira. I'm 24 years old. And I'm the eldest granddaughter of Claude and Noel, or as we call them, grandfather and Nanu. To honor our grandfather today, I wrote him a letter on behalf of all of the grandchildren. Many of you have already approached us to ask what it was like having Claude as a grandfather, and I hope that this letter helps shed some light on what he has meant to us. You may notice that this letter is a little bit longer than some of the other speeches, but there are 8 of us. So thank you for your patience. Dear grandfather, remember when we had that conversation years ago about how you weren't able to be there for any of your grandchildren's births? You weren't even able to make it for your own children's births, except for Auntie Knickers, because you were not allowed in the rooms. I could tell that this saddened you to have missed these once-in-a-lifetime experiences. But then I told you that you could definitely come to the birth of my own children, and a huge smile broke across your face. Up until the early morning of March 18th, I still thought you would be there. You were always a part of the future I had envisioned for myself. And now I have to reimagine that future without you. But I don't want to, and I know my cousins share this sentiment. We can't believe you're gone. We can't believe you won't be at our weddings, or that you'll never get to meet our kids. We can't believe they won't get to meet you, their great-grandfather. We can't believe we'll have to celebrate the holidays, and you won't be there. While we are at times overcome with feelings of loss, grief, anger, even physical pain at the thought of you being gone, what is getting us through are the joyous memories, the sacred humor, the boundless love we have and will always have for you and our family. So that is what we want to focus on today. We will never forget the memories of spending time with you as children. We'll remember playing shark at Yellow Slide Park, where you would chase us around the play structure. We'll remember squeezing 8 sleeping bags around your bed every time you slept over. Because you and Nanu wanted us to be that close. We'll remember staying up and watching Powers of 10, one of your favorite videos that showed the powers of 10 from as small as the atom all the way up to the galaxies in space. Or we would stay up watching video recordings of Peter, Paul, and Mary live. We know how much you loved Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it brought us all to tears when you used some of your last breaths to sing Puff the Magic Dragon with us one more time during our last night together. We'll remember the delicious crepe you would make us in the morning, the way we would compete with each other to see who could eat the most. We'll remember as young adults playing tennis on Saturdays and then being your backhand, or going hiking, maybe Mount Tam or Tennessee Valley Beach, and getting lost in conversation. We'll remember the connection we felt doing vision quests with you at Arawaka. We'll remember the way your face lit up every time we asked you about cosmology or nuclear physics. Your excitement to discuss everything from relativity theory to quantum mechanics to how time is a social construct. I'm sorry. We will remember the stories you would tell us As kids, it was stories about how you saved the Netherlands from flooding using only your flute and toothpicks. Or how you flipped hundreds of crêpes in a row in the kitchen of the Belgian palace. As we got older, you shared more stories about your childhood, how you had to flee Belgium during World War II with your mother and siblings, or how you courageously refused chocolate from Nazi soldiers. We will remember the stories of you falling in love with Nanu and persistently asking her to marry you over and over again until she finally said yes. We will always remember how much you loved her, the way you would gaze at her, the way you would call her mon coeur or mon amour, the way you used to take baths together to make time for tenderness and intimate connection, the way you continued courting her until your very last breath. We have always admired your loving relationship with Nanu, for it has been this emblem of a successful, interdependent partnership to which we are all aspiring as we begin to enter our own serious relationships. We will never forget the lessons we have learned from you about love and marriage, and we appreciate how open you both were with us about all of the beautiful intricacies of your partnership. And while we will certainly hold those lessons about love dear to our hearts, what may impact us the most are all of the lessons you have taught us the last 4 years about anthropocentrism, about the dualities of living and dying, and probably most of all, about partnering with cancer. You understood that isolation and resistance don't heal. Partnering and embracing heal, and you modeled this philosophy in every aspect of your healing. Not only did you partner with your own cancer cells, you invited your caregivers, your family, your communities to partner with your cancer too. You facilitated the collaboration of non-Western and Western medicine, and you continue to view your Amazonian plant medicine and your lab-manufactured Tarsiva and Tigriso as equally sacred. Moreover, you've helped us reject the societal notion that there is a war on cancer. You helped us learn that fighting would not help cure your illness, and that victimizing you as a cancer patient would not help empower you to heal. We have learned to eliminate violent phrases like fight cancer or battle cancer from our vocabulary, and replace them with phrases like heal cancer and partner with cancer. We love that you prefer to be called a cancer carrier instead of a cancer victim or cancer patient. As you always said, I have cancer. Cancer does not have me. While you consistently blew our minds with bits of wisdom similar to this, we'll also remember the smaller things that made you grandfather. We'll remember your contagious smile. We'll remember how you loved playing tennis and the harmonica, your love for Yo-Yo Ma and Mozart, for poetry and Mary Oliver. We'll remember your love for chocolate, for crouton and Nanu soups, and your role as the family ice cream scooper. We'll remember your close relationships with the members of the Sapra, the Achuar, the Quechua and Lakota indigenous groups in the Amazon and at Arawaka. We'll remember your groundedness while beating drums, your peacefulness during a Nipi ceremony. We'll remember your connection to trees and mountains, your love for kayaking and backpacking, your connection with deer and eagle and bear. We'll remember the way you said tree instead of 3, or the way you said shut instead of swearing. We'll remember the excitement we felt every time you chose to sit next to us in the living room, every time we got to sit next to you during a meal, every time we got to hold your hand. There's so many things that make you unique, and we're not ready to say goodbye to all of these wonderful attributes. But we won't have to, not really at least, because all of these beautiful loves and passions of yours will live on in us. You will live on in our words and our activism as we teach friends and communities about new approaches to living and partnering with cancer and chronic illness. You will live on in our fascination for the cosmos, our love and appreciation for nature. Your legacy will live on in us as much as it will live on through your books, your workshops, your interviews. Everything you have done, every person you have impacted, all of the energy you have exerted writing, playing, dancing, talking, will exist forever, because energy cannot be created or destroyed. Who knew that the theory of the conservation of energy could be so comforting? Thank you for sharing your stories, your journeys, your insights, for being vulnerable with us, because this is what allowed us to be vulnerable with you. We could confide in you when we couldn't confide in anyone else, not our parents, nor our friends. Thank you for always being there to help us interpret strange dreams or confusing journeys, for every healing and soul retrieval. Thank you for helping us when we had ghosts living in our college apartments. Thank you for always being accepting and understanding of who we are and what we believe, and for always being encouraging and thoughtful with your responses, never condescending. Thank you for always being patient, for always listening intently with your heart as much as your ears. Thank you for sharing your wisdom without ever sounding preachy, for choosing each word with care and intention. Equally importantly, thank you for giving space for other voices to be heard, even when all eyes were eagerly directed at you, as they almost always were. We will never forget your humility and your authenticity, despite the high standard we all held you to. Thank you for bringing the sacred masculine to the feminist movement, for being such a strong feminist role model for the men in your life. You understood better than most the oppression women face, and you are a fierce advocate for our rights. You once told me, here and now is the time for women to lead, and I'm sad you won't be here when we do. Most of all, thank you for your fortitude the last 4 years, and your courage to embrace the unknown, for reminding us that every illness is a gift of spirit. Grandfather, you had a habit of turning anything, even something as devastating as cancer, into a topic worthy of honor, wonder, and deeper exploration. Thank you for including us so intimately on this journey, for inviting us to ask questions about death and dying, despite the taboo nature of these topics in our culture. Thank you for every text, every phone call, every visit, every Zoom meeting that helped us feel closer to you when we were feeling so far away. Thank you for your unwavering focus and energy towards healing your sick cells, for never giving up, for beating all of the odds, for being a statistical outlier over and over again. You exceeded all of our expectations. You continue to grow, learn, and teach. You lived, healed, even thrived with cancer. And no one could have embraced death with more trust and more grace than you did. Thank you for waiting for all 8 of us to arrive before deciding to let go, and for using your last breaths to tell us that you loved us. We know that with your labored breathing, it was not easy to repeat I love you 8 separate times. But these last words will color our final memories of you forever. Thank you for allowing us to accompany you as you transitioned into this next phase of being, for it has been one of the most meaningful and profound experiences of our lives. Although your physical presence is sorely missed, it is comforting to know that what's left of your body is safe in Anu's cookie jar. But the rest of you isn't really gone either. The smoke from your ashes carries the nitrogen, carbon, and oxygen atoms that were once a part of you, and those atoms are now a part of the elements. They will become a part of the air we breathe, the water we drink, the gardens we tend to, the candles we light, the trees we love. You will be with us always. Every time we look at the night sky, we will think of you. We will feel close to you every time we walk in the forest and hear the whispers of the trees. You will still be a part of every family dinner, every Christmas ritual, every drumming circle, every sweat lodge, every family reunion, every graduation, promotion, wedding, birth. You will be a part of all of it, just in a different way. We hope you will visit us often, however you can, in our journeys, in our dreams. We know you will always be close, but we're really, really going to miss you. With love and adoration, Kira, Maya, Jake, Max, Chantal, Sydney, Quinn, and Zach. Thank you.
If you can count, there are only 7 of us here right now. The 8th is our dear Sydney, who is not able to be with us today, unfortunately. One of the most difficult decisions that she's ever had to make, but it wasn't something that was in the cards for her. So completely understandable, and we hold her presence here, and I know that she has just as much love for good father as we all do. So, thank you.
Thank you, graduates. We'd like to invite Jeff Brown to come up, and Jeff will be speaking from the perspective of the drumming circle that existed for decades, and that was a very important part of my best friend.
So I've been part of the drumming circle that Claude and Noel started. I don't know how, is it 25 years you've been doing this? I've been part of it for 20 years. And we meet every other Monday, and we drum and get instructions from Spirit and then journey to Spirit. And often Claude suggested what these journeys might be. And Claude was a scientist, a physicist, and a shaman. And we would journey to the cosmos a lot, and we would do world work a lot. And he often gave us what we were journeying to that night. And often after the journeys, he would speak, and he would speak last. And when Claude spoke, I always really paid attention because he spoke with such humility, such grace, and such power, and such truth. So I secretly adopted him as my spiritual grandfather, even though he's not old enough to be my grandfather. My wife said, you should think of him as your father, and I was like, well, but I had a very close relationship with my grandfather. And I also adopted you, Noel, as my spirit. I've never told him this. My spirit. And not because of their age, because of how wise they are. And how much I learned from them. Claude taught all of us through his kind presence, his deep listening and his love. He embodied some kind of he embodied a non-dualistic authenticity. As an indigenous person, he was from Holland, but I've met a lot of indigenous people, and Claude was as indigenous as they come. Kind of like the Dalai Lama. He had this sense of humor and this deep humility, and everyone that he related to and everything that he related to was an I-thou relationship. For Claude, everyone that he was talking to was sacred. And he taught through his presence effortlessly. And we all grew immensely by spending time with him. His daily shape-shifting practice, this is something he did every day. He didn't kind of merge with things. He shape-shifted into them. And that distinction is that his ego was no longer there. He was that other entity. He shape-shifted into quasars, into supernovas, into stars. And he shape-shifted into animals, into mountains, into trees. And he became those things and saw as those things, and often would speak about not having a human orientation. You know, having an orientation in which everything is your relative, everything is your ancestor, everything is your family. And he embodied that very profoundly in his actions, in his presence, in his words, in his deeds. He was fathomless, you know, in his wisdom. Claude made you feel like everything was part of a grand plan. You know, that this universe was beneficent, even in its violence and its cataclysmic events. And I just want to share with you a simple story, and I'm making the same apology I think that Kira made, which is that I'm representing a group of shamans. This is a little longer than the previous speeches. But when Claude was transitioning, there was a sweat lodge in the Arawakan community. Claude and Noel had vision quested with them. And I was going to the sweat lodge, and I didn't know, but the sweat lodge, Mark knew of Claude's situation, and the sweat lodge was in his honor that night. And I texted Noel and I said, you know, do any of the grandkids want to ride to the sweat lodge? And she, you know, I'm going tonight, and I had found out it was in Claude's honor, and not only in his honor, but to help him actually cross over. And I texted Noel, and she said that we are in ceremony here ourselves, and Claude's passing could happen at any time. I hadn't realized it was that close. And Jake and Max said hello to the Arawakan community, and that they'll be there this summer. And Claude had a message for the Arawakan community, which was thanks and goodbye. And then he added, and I later learned he didn't just say this, he shouted this. Inipi is everywhere. Inipi is home. Inipi is where the truth is. So Inipi is the name, the Lala name for the sweat lodge, and it's a purification ceremony. It's an inner and outer purification, and the idea is that you clean the hollow bone of yourself so that spirit can come through you. And Mark that night was leading the sweat lodge, and he said, because there were 3 new people in the sweat lodge, he told them, when it gets hot, sit up tall, breathe in the heat, embrace it. And somehow what Mark said and what Claude said really will stay in my heart forever. Because when I am faced with the challenges of life, every day, you know, it might be a moment, it might be some difficult decision. Breathe in the steam. This is the purification of life. This is, you're being presented a challenge for your growth. You know, lean forward, lean in, breathe in. So that will always stay with me. I'm going to paint what Claude and Noel texted to my cell phone on my wall. I'm livid. And in the lodge, a whale came to me that night. And for me, you know, it's one of my totem animals. And so I was in the sweat lodge there 4 rounds, and you sing and pray and drum. And I was making whale sounds. And for me, the whale's song is crying and laughing at the same time. You know, it's this beautiful, tender, heart-wrenching, funny sound. So I was doing this in the sweat lodge. And then everyone, you know, was really sad about Claude passing in the sweat lodge, because he was really part of that community, just like he was part of our drumming circle, just like he was part of so many people's lives. And so I did a laughing song in the sweat lodge. It goes like this: ha ha ha, he ho ho ho. And you just keep repeating that until everyone is laughing. So we were crying and laughing in the lodge together. And it turned out at exactly that moment, Claude was surrounded by his grandchildren and his children, and he came out of a long moment of silence, and he said, I've been shapeshifted as a whale, and now I have to pee a whale a mountain, and don't be upset with me. So you see these synchronicities were happening, And last year, I turned 60, and Claude and Noel officiated at my birthday, and they said, we're really going to sock it to you. We're going to give it to you really hard. And I was like, what are you going to do? And they said, we're not going to tell you. It's a ceremony. And they took me through every decade of my life. It was really powerful. And Claude passed on Sunday. My birthday was on Thursday. We were walking at Stinson Beach, and we walked to the end of the beach, and there was a whale. We saw a whale, and it spouted, and we saw it breach, and we saw its tail, and we saw its flippers. It was a humpback, and it was doing this over and over in the same place. So I took off my shirt, and I walked out to this whale. And I got to within 12 feet of this whale. I was going to help it. It seemed like it needed help of some kind. I didn't know how I could do it because it weighed several tons. But I was like, oh, I just had to go. And then just as I got to about 12 feet from the whale, my feet lifted off of the water. I was about this deep in the water at that point. And there was an undertow pulling me directly at the whale. And I kind of like went back, you know, got back on my feet in the sand. And then I went under the water and I made the whale song. And the whale kind of stayed under and calmed down, and then it left. And I like to think that that whale had something to do with Claude. that those flippers were waving goodbye. You know, but for me, like you guys, I'm going to see him when I look at the stars. I'll see him and feel him when I feel the sun on my face and the wind. You know, he lives here really powerfully for me and always will. He was a mentor, a friend, and, you know, an incredible example of what a human can be. So I'm really grateful for having had him in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So, moving from the drumming circle community to the Pachamama Alliance is another organization that was very important in the lives of both my parents for many, many years as well. So, we'd like to invite Tracy Apple.
Wait a minute. First of all, it's an honor to be in this circle, unusually shaped circle. And I want to be honest, I'm just not a big fan of death. You know, I think this is a great group, and I would really like it if Claude were sitting right next to me. So, in that way, Claude and Noel continue to be my teachers about the natural cycles of life. And I say Claude and Noel because for me, you know, I've known them 14 years and it's always been Claude and Noel, Claude and Noel. That's who I know, it's Claude and Noel. I work for and with the Pachamama Alliance, and when we were developing our flagship program called Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream, about in 2004, we invited Claude to the table, to the creation table of even what the symposium could be. And I don't think everybody really knows what a big role he played in the development and creation of this program. Principally, for starters, I'll say that he let us know the importance of opening sacred space, just as we did today here, and calling in the ancestors and calling in the allies. And he let us know that there he was when he was working in the Clinton White House. There he was as a physicist, silently doing these practices there. And we said, it's good enough for the president. It's definitely good enough for the Pachamama Alliance. And so from most of our activities, we begin with opening sacred space, and we thank Claude for that. Another aspect he brought to the table or to our programs as both a physicist and as a shaman was he pointed out that how the world got to where it is right now is not necessarily, it's not helpful to look at it as a function of all these evil, terrible people in the world, but rather that there were kind of unexamined assumptions. And if you could look at the unexamined assumptions, then you could start to deal with it. So the tendency to vilify, he made sure that, no, I don't really want that as part of the program either. Then there's this basic aspect to the Pachamama Alliance's programs that has to do with
creating an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence. And back in 2004, I'm telling you, people were not talking about those three things together. It was a little strange. You were either interested in social justice or you were interested in the environment. And Claude helped us see, you know what, it's the marriage of all three. And I will tell you, through the years, he held our feet to the fire on all three of those. And for that, we're deeply grateful. Then Noelle and her crew decided to translate these materials into French. And so off we all went to Belgium with Claude, who had never really led any of our programs, but he just embodied them. So there we were in his home with his people in Europe, meeting people like Gertrude, and he was up there co-leading an event he had never even attended, but because the Pachamama Alliance was so deeply who he was. You know, we will forever, ever be in great gratitude to the contribution Claude, see, I almost said Claude Noel. That's Claude Noel. The contribution Claude Noel have made to the Pachamama Alliance. Claude and Noel went to the rainforest with the Pachamama Alliance, and as the story goes, one of the shamans called him over to some trees, I don't know if they were mango or papaya, that were failing. And kind of shaman to shaman said, can you help us out here? And as I've heard it, he went home, prayed for 3 months, and miraculously, the entire grove was healed. He was a shaman's shaman. And then, for their 50th wedding anniversary, they took this whole crew to the rainforest. Who ever heard of such a thing? You know, maybe you take your favorite child or your favorite grandchild. But they all went, oh, this whole front row. They all went to the rainforest. And obviously, they've been touched by that, as we heard from Kira. And I think the people in the rainforest who saw this strong family arrive were also touched that way. And many of you guys then became supporters of the Pachamama Alliance, for which we are deeply grateful. 11 years and 5 days ago, I became a widow unexpectedly. And then 11 years and 7 days ago, I got a call from Claude and Noel saying, would you like us to journey to find out how Paul is doing in his transition? No one else offered me that. I didn't even know it was possible. But I was really, really grateful. And I would say to you, Noel, may the love of a really wonderful man sustain you as it has me. So Claude and Noel, Claude and Noel, Claude and Noel. Claude and Noel.
And building on that important focus on social justice, environmental stewardship, we wanted to invite Conde Mason to speak about those in particular, as they were very profound and meaningful for him.
Hello, everyone. I'm really, really honored to be asked to speak today and to be here with the family. I've known Claude and Noel from the Pachamama Alliance as well. And as Tracy just said, the three parts of the mission, there was a part of social justice that really spoke to me and to Noel and to Claude. And that's where we did a lot of work together. And so before I really start though, I really want to bring, I had a conversation this morning, very early this morning, with Reverend Deborah Johnson, who wanted to be here today and is unable to, so I'm giving her love and respect to the family, and she asked me to do that. So she's here with us in spirit, and you all know how deep she is to you all, and how you are to her as well. So, like all of us gathered here today, I have so many wonderful memories of our friend Claude. And I've spent many hours over the years at the Poncelet dining room table, over Noel's soups, always reminding her that chicken soup is not vegan. Every time. So we talked a lot about life in America, race, the Black experience in America, me as a Black woman in America, and really digging into those questions that were just piercing and deep and real for Claude and Noel. We talked about privilege and social justice and biology and physics, and of course shamanism. Because you see, Claude, unlike Noel, was really passionate about social justice. His staunch conviction that we must do everything we can to create a just society came from his unique capacity to not just know this as a moral imperative, but he saw social justice through the lens of biology and physics. Claude could prove without a shadow of a doubt the truth of oneness of all life. And not by way of the escapist route of color blindness or spiritual bypass. Because Claude really passionately honored, loved, and celebrated the differences of our cultures. He was able to hold the paradox of the relative reality of difference on one hand and the absolute reality of oneness on the other. So Claude, he refused to accept racial bias. He partnered with us, those of us on the Social Justice Committee, with Noel in the lead most of the time. He partnered with us, and he was our sounding board especially for some of the outrageous antics that Noel came up with. Thank God for him, because some of us would probably be in jail if it wasn't for him. I'm only telling the truth, Noel. You asked me to speak. Next time, don't ask me. Connected to that was another issue important to Claude. He was a fierce advocate for the worldview that was counter to the prevailing wisdom that humans are at the center, that we humans are the main, most important element of existence. No. Claude had a biocentric worldview that put all living things in nature at the center, that humans are a part of this greater community of all beings. Claude knew in his heart and mind that all beings have equal, deep, intrinsic value, whether human, amoeba, or a K-pop tree. We are all equally vital actors in this cosmic soup that makes up the vast and wonderful universe that we all are a part of. And now, Claude has merged into that soup in a new and different way. Thank you, Claude, for showing us who we really are in this messy and beautiful human form, and how to love each other and all of life, and who we will be when we join you in that great mystery of the unknown. You are so loved, Claude, and love never dies.
So Claude was a member of a vibrant shamanic community in the United States, but he was also a participant in an equally vibrant shamanic community in Europe. So we've asked Gertrude Claude to come up and speak to that community as well.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Noel. So I'm Gertrude from Belgium, and I'm really honored to be here with you today to be honoring Claude, and I'm really speechless to tell the truth. So I just wanted to share with you how I came to meet Claude like about 20 years ago. I just came back from a trip to Benin, West Africa, where I had experienced several events that my Western mind would consider as being strange. When I came across this leaflet with the title Spirits of Nature. And the organism offering this workshop was called Tetra, and the person in charge, Claude Poncelet. So meeting Claude for the very first time was a revelation. I was awestruck by this enchanting, charming little boy with this playful smile on his face, living in a wise man's body. I truly saw wisdom made man. Far was I from knowing by then how lucky I had been, meeting first Claude and then Noël. Claude and Noël Poncelet, two extraordinary beings, instilled new impetus in Tetra and greatly contributed to the resurgence of shamanism in French-speaking Europe and beyond. Claude's words nourished and inspired thousands of people throughout the world. And three words that come to my mind when I think of how he conveyed his teachings are authenticity, integrity, impeccability. So you can't imagine how humble and grateful I felt when Claude asked me several years later if I was willing to take over teaching at Tetra. As Claude and Noël were thinking sadly of retiring. That day, I was here in San Francisco, and we were going for a walk up hills near to one of his beloved spots, near the Pacific Ocean. And I remember when coming back from this walk, I could literally feel how a new color had been added to the rainbow of our relationship. A deep new layer of depth and trust. And you can't imagine how humbled and grateful I felt several years later when Claude and Noël asked me and invited me to take part in a trip to the Amazonian rainforest, a trip Pachamama Alliance rightly calls journey of a lifetime. To me, Claude and Noël were just more than extraordinary guides. On this really life-changing journey, they were spiritual mother and father. They were wisdom carriers and friends. And you can't imagine how humbled and grateful I felt when again, several years later, Claude asked me if I was willing to translate his book, The Shaman Within, into French. This book, which is a true legacy to shamanism. And working so closely with Claude for months and trying to the best as I could to convey what he felt and wanted to say truly was a gift. And you can probably imagine by now how humbled and grateful I feel being here with you all, and Noël, just honoring you, Claude. And the vision that stays with me and will stay with me is seeing this enchanting young old boy sprinkling golden stardust of wisdom onto our paths and into our hearts. Thank you, Claude.
So the final community that we want to welcome up here to share is a more recent one. It's the Arawaka community. Mark, please.
I was, like most everyone else who's been up here, honored to be standing here in this microphone with all of you to honor Claude and remember him, love him as we all did, and we all do. So, Noelle asked me to speak a little bit about elder. I don't know why she asked me. Yeah. So, but this is one of the deep connections I had with Claude. Is from the Arawaka community. Basically, we were, with Noelle, and my wife, we were the old folks there. And we represented a certain thing that I think in some ways, like, we don't know how to do this. About 15 years ago, I was able to go take a trip to Africa and visited the Maasai and the Hadza tribes. And the leader of this group, Richard Leiter, some of you might know that name, wrote a book called Claiming Your Place by the Fire. In those communities, at night, instead of watching streaming videos, they sit around the fire and they tell stories and they sing songs and they teach the young people what it is to live a good life, do those things. And the elders naturally, automatically, sit closest to the fire. It's not like, oh, excuse me, this is my seat. It's like, no, that just happens. And so my friend Richard was looking at all this and going, you know, elders in this society, this culture, Western culture, we get dismissed, we get sidelined. All these things can happen. And he says, and he suggests it's imperative to claim our place by the fire. I look around this room and it's kind of like, I'm talking to a lot of us here. And I know a lot of us understand this conversation. So somewhere along the line, I find Arawaka, or better said, Arawaka finds me. Now Arawaka, in case you don't know, is a place we do ceremony to give thanks for life, to give thanks for our life, for everything that we had, to connect much, much deeper to all of life, to know that as humans, we are all of life. There's no separation from any of that. And the good fortune of Arawaka is Claude Noel shows up there and become part of what our ceremonies and what we do. And for really the first time, we had somebody that I would suggest was an elder. Other than the indigenous elders that would come and share our ceremonies with us, these were the family elders. Arawaka becomes a family when you start doing the ceremony. And Claude and I would occasionally sit down, sometimes the four of us would sit down together, and we did a number of elder conversations, and what does it mean? And so I had my own thing about it. My last vision quest ended up inadvertently, I was facing 60 years old, it was inadvertently like, elder, oh shit. Like, what's gonna happen now? And I had the whole cultural background kind of hit me upside the head here. 60. And by the time I got to Vision Quest and just over, it was like, oh, you know, that really doesn't make any difference. It's just a number. So all of this is, you know, when you asked me, Noelle, it's like, oh, this is like, elder, what does it mean? What does it mean? How do we define? What are we aspiring to as we move forward in our years? What is it to be elder? And then there was Claude. And from what I could see and feel in my conversations with Claude, and I would not disclude you, Noelle, from this conversation, but this interaction. So, Claude was the embodiment of elder. And when I say the embodiment of elder, they could probably come up with 100 different definitions. about that. And many of those attributes, what I would see is like, this is the embodiment of elder, is what everybody's been talking about here. And how we've been honoring him, and how we've been loving him and praising him. The unassuming nature of it. As an elder, Claude wasn't those people that would preach, that would teach. In fact, he was mostly would just stay quiet. But if you asked him, and you had a question for him, there he was. And that wisdom, that love that he had, the essence of who he was, would just spill into those conversations. Not like he was trying to be anybody. There wasn't anything like that. So on my journey towards elderhood, I look at like, okay, I have a role model now. I have something to aspire to, something I can look at and go, this would be a good place to move towards. And I think even though the Arawaka community was later in his life, there was a real shared experience there of what we gained from him, what you and some of the other members of the family are gaining from Arawaka currently. It's just a beautiful, beautiful exchange. There's one other aspect of these kinds of settings. We do these things, we hear all these beautiful things about Claude, about his life, his family. And I often look at like, well, why do I love people? You know, the different people I really open my heart to. Why do I love them? And I love them because they're human beings. And we've heard so many beautiful things about Claude. So many. I mean, and it's exactly who he is. And I bet Noel has another whole set of stories about the humanness of Claude. And I think in remembering and loving Claude, we don't want to forget that. He was a human being, just like all the rest of us. And he had the most beautiful aspects, and he had the weirdnesses, like we all do. And that's what I remember about Claude, all of him. That's what I honor about him. As an elder, as a role model for me, Claude, I will miss you, I do miss you, and I will see you again.
With confession. And my grandson giving me some more. Thank you. I'm really, 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 really moved by all of you being here. Each one of you is a piece of the puzzle. And as you are linked yourself to those who would be here if they could, you know how far out it goes and how far inside it goes. And Claude would look at you and is looking at you and just enjoying the intimacy of being with each other here. And my other confession is that I have no idea what I'm going to say next, except that actually, Mark, you made a comment about the totality of Claude that brings me to talking about what the last 6 months were, because Claude stopped seeing friends starting November 1st. And on November 1st, he started receiving IV chemo, which is something he had feared and I had feared and pushed back as far as we possibly could, because we knew that the impact would change him at all levels of physicality. So I want to mention, when we taught a workshop in September,
we talked about, it was about partnering with illness, eldering, and the unknown. We talked about three forces in the universe that is found in all mystical traditions. The three forces are the white force, the creative force, the red force, the maintaining love force, and the black force is the dissolving, destroying force. They are equally important, and they are to be respected equally also. IV chemo is pure black force. It's a destroying force. And it helped me to really understand that, because Claude was really overwhelmed by a dissolving force, which he had called forth and welcomed, because that was, in a way, one of the last tools that he could use to prepare himself for yet another plateau of well-being, because he loved life and he did not want to die. Which I loved this. He was in love with life. And in love with me, in love with family, in love with all of you out here. So I want to point out the purity of a dark force, because most of us experience it on a daily basis, but mitigated and balanced by the other forces. IV chemo, the ones he was given, and he was already on a double dose of the oral chemo, made it so that he really experienced this dark, dissolving force. And what he did was enhance the dark force that exists in all of us. So the dark force, you could say, was very cutting. And if you knew Claude, this was not a guy who would have gestures like this. That was not him. But they became part of his experience. He would at one point just say, and I would look at this man and say, ooh, this is somebody different. But it's not like he changed. It's simply that parts of him came forth that had not been given, for very good reasons, the full space for really being there. And so, I have to say, at times it was very painful to really be in force, in that presence. And it was really important to remember that the two other forces were present, but the gestalt of foreground, background had shifted, okay? It worked. When the last 10 days, when Claude left the hospital, all the signs were that all the cancer cells were in remission everywhere. And that was remarkable, because it was not only lungs and vertebrae, but it was spine and brain. All of that was in balance, except for the pleural sac of his lungs that started, and they were full of cancer cells, who started filling up, okay? What is really important to me and really helps me is that in the last 2 days, when he recognized that his desire to live was really being balanced by now a reality of dying, the other two forces came back. And they came back in balance with the dark force that had been there. And they came back, so this man who did not have the capacity, vocal cords, that was just one word or 3 sentences, was able to sing Puff's Magic Dragon. He was able to sing Happy Birthday to Stephen 2 days before he died. He was able to connect with each one of us individually and say something that came from that love force. He was able to respond to being challenged by his daughter physician when she on Friday morning said that the reality is, and a few minutes, half an hour later, he was able to say, I know I am dying and I am embracing it. So, what am I saying about this? It's my incredible reverence for these three forces, for having really known them in such an intense way, for knowing that if one, and we all live that in our lives, sometimes we are all love, and we become mushy, and we can't create anything, and we look like we don't have a dark side. That's, you know that place. Or, you know, we know about being all creativity, and who cares what the impact is on environment, for example. You know, the next iteration of the cell phone or whatever. White force going non-stop. Where is the dark force? Where is the love force? So I lived with Claude this interaction, and it leaves me first noticing that he's here, because he's the three forces, so are you. We all are here in that manifestation. And he's also absent, which is what the dark force does, dissolves things. We watched him having this last breath. The first two breaths were full into the mouth, up, into the nose. I said it the wrong way several times. Into the nose, out to the mouth, after having really struggled for breath for hours. He had these three full breaths, and you say, where are they coming from? He can't no longer do that biologically. Well, maybe he can't, but he's doing it, right? And then his last breath were tender, affectionate breaths that went slower and quieter until they disappeared. Where is he? You see? He left us, and that really makes the whole difference for me, with that gentleness that he was, with that love, and with this dark force that was so present in these 4 years that he partnered with cancer. So, you know, people might feel sorry for me. I want to tell you, I can't find it inside of me. I still can't find it. There's something else. And I'm sharing it, and I'm here mirroring it back. And for all our family, thanking you for being here, and thanking Claude for being so present and absent at the same time.
They didn't get up here specifically and talk, but many of you are in the audience, the medical community and the healers who were so incredible, led by my sister Anne. And so we will be doing something special for them individually, but they're very much here and part of this group. So the closing poem is going to be read by grandfather's grandson, Jake. And it's Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And I think many people know the poem and why that's so appropriate for my dad.
Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trod in black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
So, very briefly, when we went to Ecuador as a family, one of the things we had learned about is that the Ashwar, as part of that connection, like to share stories and songs. And we couldn't resist, if it was truly an exchange, to bring a song. And so to honor Dad, we're going to sing together. I invite family members who are going to sing. They come on up and we can just stand here. And then on one side of your programs, upside down, the right side up are the lyrics. And anyone who wants to join in, starting the second verse, please feel free to join in. I have the phone because I have our starting notes on it. And someone have the words for me? Where are they? Next one. Listen.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me, when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. You just call on brother when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on. That's good.
So a couple logistics, and then we'll do a very last closing moment together. We're going to have time together today. We have food. We have this lovely slideshow that Jeremiah put together with photos of grandfather and their family and friends. Thank you to those of you who sent your offerings of being humbled and gratitude that Dad expressed in his last day, what was important and how he wanted to share with us. And for those of you who would like to share something important that you are humbled by and have gratitude for, we have pens and paper, and we'll be pulling those together for Mom and for all of us to be able to celebrate that spirit that Dad shared with us even in his last days. We also, in honor of Dad's kind of lessons about duality, started a little duality poem. Also in the room next door, and if you have things like Dad being with us and not being with us that you'd like to share, that's also available. And we really invite you to continue to be together in community with us this afternoon and to share stories and things that feel good about Dad. So with that, for our closing, we thought what we would do is all hold hands, or touch each other's shoulders, or however we can connect in a circle, and Janik and I will join in. And then we just have a couple of moments of silence and to celebrate Dad in silence.